we've now got a branch down in Pemberton. They've moved. We've lost the Graces and Jenny with them. So they're all down in Beth Yeshua South now. Seriously South, yeah. Because we've got Mandra South, and then we've got Seriously South in Pemberton now. So you will be missed. Please come back. Yeah. So we've got Tony and Diane in South Australia. Darren's somewhere on the East Coast. I think he's in Sydney. And Vanessa's gone back. So, cool. But at least they can come in and out now. We've got lovely Karen in Geraldton. And anybody who's in PJs today because you're sick. Because we got wiped out by a plague at Passover. Go figure. My boy Aki in Manchester, he's a Manchester branch. He's kicking some butts, isn't he? Sharing the gospel far out to the Muslim community. We've got Kylie and we've got Pam up in the far north Queensland. And I can't think of anybody else. Who else have we got? Anybody? Sin? Pete? No? Anybody else? Leanne. Of course, Leanne. Leanne and Adam. We're sending your certificate. Baptised Lauren last week. And we're baptising James's today. What a beautiful day. So, all welcome. So, we'll just crack on. How about that? What? I thought somebody whispered something, sorry. I'm going to dive in today. I've been meaning to do this for a bit. Into, it's quite appropriate really. You're gonna get a lot out of this. John 3. Famous chapter. Why? It's an important, very important chapter to the faith. It's a chapter where we see Nicodemus. If you read the CJB, Stern doesn't call him Nicodemus because Nicodemus was a Greek name. And he wasn't Greek. He was very, very Hebrew. And his name was Nachtamon. And he was Israel's teacher. He was the teacher of the teachers. He taught all the rabbis. He was a member of the Sanhedrin. You've probably seen him on, if you've watched The Chosen. The one who taught Israel's teachers. His name actually means innocent blood. And the Bible will tell you that a name's better chosen than silver or gold. And you see later in the Gospels, in John 19, it was Nachtamon, Nicodemus, who they handed Yeshua down to, off the cross. Obviously still bleeding. So what's he holding? He's the first to hold innocent blood, right? Important. Does it change your faith? Probably not, but it'll make you feel a little bit closer to the Lord now. Innocent blood, indeed. But he came to Yeshua in John 3 at night, probably for many, many different reasons. I think it would have been difficult to get to Yeshua during the day, for one. And he probably had a lot to talk about. Maybe he wanted Yeshua's undivided attention. Maybe he just didn't want to be seen with this radical, upstart rabbi who was causing a few waves, rocking a few boats in the establishment. However he came to talk to Yeshua. And he said, well, Rabbi, we know you've come from God. We know you're anointed. That's a good place to start with Yeshua, isn't it? Well, this teacher's about to be taught by the king. You dig into the chapter a little bit, you're going to pick up on 3 musts. There's 3 musts in a short space in the chapter. It's only a small chapter. And a lot of people get confused about the passage because Nicodemus is like, what do you mean I've got to be born again? And we all think, what, is he thick or something? He must be stupid. What does he mean? What do you mean? But culture, so important. When he got married in Jewish culture, Sharon, turn your phone off. In Jewish culture, I'm only kidding. Getting married is like being born again. Becoming a rabbi is like being born again. Starting a school for rabbis is like being born again. So now you can, if you take a step back, you can understand, like, what do you mean I've got to be born? I've got to go back into my mother's womb. How does that work? He wasn't being silly, was he? But he got taught something that day. And he would have picked up on 3 musts. It's a must is essential, isn't it? It's a necessity. You have to have it. It's a must. Like, you must breathe to carry on living. It's a must. No options. It'd be a must. And we've got 3 of them to deal with. And they really are from above. The first one you see, what is born from the flesh is flesh. What is born from the spirit is spirit. Stop being amazed at me telling you that you must be born again. You must be born from above. It's a must. And what's this must for? The answer is that it's a must for the sinner. One who is separated from God. So it's a must that he be born again, right? If you want to get in the kingdom, you must be born again. It's a prerequisite. People say, oh, are you one of them born again Christians? Like it's a special sect or something. Every Christian there is should be born again. It's a redundant question, really, isn't it? We must all be born again. It's a must for the sinner. Fair? The next you see in John 3:14, just as Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up. This then is a must for the Saviour. And there's no way around that one either. It's an absolute must. If it done that, we're all done. Yeshua in John, I'm in turmoil. What can I say? Father, save me from this hour? Question mark. No, it's for this very reason that I've come to this hour. And I'll say this, Father, glorify your name. At this, a bat coal came out of heaven, a loud voice. I have glorified it. And I'll glorify it again. And the crowd standing there, hearing it, said, it had thundered. Others said, an angel spoke to him. Yeshua answered, this is a bat call. It did not come for my sake, but for yours. Now is the time for this world to be judged. Now the ruler of this world will be expelled. Amen. As for me, when I'm lifted up from the earth, I will draw everyone to myself. And he said this to indicate the kind of death he'd suffer. There's no way around it. He came to suffer and die. He came to give his life. And if he doesn't, there's no hope for the sinner. And then we have a third must. You see in John 3:30. And it says, he must increase while I must decrease. So we've got a must for the sinner, we've got a must for the Saviour, and now this is a must for the saint. This is where we come in, this is our must. Because we've gotten past the first one, right? We're all saved. Fair? We can draw strength from that, but we really don't want to part there, do we? Stop it. Because there's so much more. You don't want to park at salvation, do you? So he must increase and we must decrease. This is a passage in John. So who's the he? Yeshua's the he. Who's the I then? What? It's John the Episcopalian. No, John the First Baptist. Something like that. Simple, it was John. He was the forerunner, wasn't he? To Yeshua. Powerful ministry. And amongst men, there was nobody more favoured than John. And he messed people up. He freaked them out, completely freaked them out, and he messed them up. He had a strong word. You get right with God. The kingdom's close at hand. It's all about repentance from sin. That was his MO. That was how he operated. Infant baptism, forget it. It's about accountability, isn't it? You've got to know what you're being saved from. Arnie, I want saving. The first question I'm going to ask you is, what from? What do you want saving from? Because if you don't know, what's the point? All you're going to do is go to the ocean and get wet. Isn't it? It's about the heart. If the heart isn't right, if something's not already happened here, there's no point going getting baptized. Because there's not going to be any change. And then guess what happens? The Lord gets a bad rap for it. See? They got baptized. They never changed. And then it makes like God's not real, doesn't it? And a lot of people do it. Oh, yeah, I want heaven. Yeah, fire insurance. It's not about fire insurance. It's life and death. It's real. You don't get a grip on this. You've got to open your book at some point, and you really don't want to open your book, do you? Read Revelation, it's right there. Books will be opened, your books. If you're not in the book of life, you're done. You've got to answer for everything in that book. And guess what? You've got the best prosecution in the universe. The accuser of the brethren, Hasatan, the accuser. If you've not got the best defense lawyer, whose dad's the judge, what's going to happen? John's the forerunner. Now he's got to get out of the way. He has to decrease. Because up to that point, he's been the main man. Everybody went to John to repent. And now he's got to decrease in authority. And just so you know, John was from the Aaronic line. Zechariah and Elizabeth, his mother, were both from the Aaronic line. He was like royalty. He should have been the high priest It was corrupted. It was a corrupted system. Why do you think he baptized Yeshua? He just never got caught up in the establishment. He didn't want it. Because there was an establishment then like there is one now. And nothing changes. And they didn't like him, and they didn't like Yeshua either. Because they were rocking him to the core. But he knew he had to get out of the way. Now, can we apply this to us? You want application? Can we apply this as saints? That's the question. Can we decrease so we can increase? That's the game. Because it's not about you. It's not about you. Not when you're born again. You don't matter no more. He does. His glory matters, not yours. You're going to get convicted today. I've been getting slammed with this all week, so I've got to pass it on. Sorry. Saints, our flesh must decrease. Flesh must. It must decrease as believers. Now, physically, we're all as humans, and I'm sincerely hoping that everybody in here is human. We've got what's known as a body composition, right? I got taught this off the rabbi years ago because he was big gym junkie. Body composition, it's muscle and fat. That's what we're made up of. What you can't do is convert fat to muscle. And muscle doesn't turn into fat. What you have to do is increase your muscle and decrease your fat content if you want to be healthy. Right? That's fair, isn't it? You should know you're a gym junkie. Well, I was. Beautiful person. But your muscle can't turn into fat. Anyway, body composition's the point, right? So just as in the physical, so it is in the spiritual. As in spiritual composition, we have flesh and we have spirit. Fair? So the same principle applies. You cannot convert or change your flesh into spirit. And you can't, as much as you think you can, control your flesh. Only the Spirit of God coming into your tabernacle controls that and changes that. And it's a bit like going to the dentist. I have fears. Dentist is one of them. I don't have many, but a dentist is one of them. I've had some really bad experiences. But a dentist has to drill your tooth out before he fills it, doesn't he? And sometimes, most times, it hurts. I've only ever been to one dentist in all my life, and he was called Perkins Pong. He was a Chinese bloke. And he was recommended by my mate in England who I used to share an house with. And he had just the best. He was like one of the Bee Gees, Andy. He had perfect teeth. And he spent a fortune on them. But he was perfect, Perkins Pong. He was in Chadderton, just up from the Rosa Lancaster, you remember? And he was brilliant, never felt a thing. And he said to me, I'm going to put your filling in, Arnie. I'll guarantee it for 2 years. The filling's still there. The tooth, forget it, it's gone. But the filling's still there, 30 years on. He was brilliant. Anyway, you got to drill to fill. That's the point. You got to drill out the flesh to get in the more spirit. Now, once saved, that's the process. And we might kick back and we might fight, because nobody, if you're being honest, nobody likes a dentist. I'm sorry if you're a dentist, but your flesh must decrease. The flesh is very, very destructive. And it'll never do anything good. It just won't. The spirit, though, the good news is the spirit can't do anything bad. Now, there's a psalm, and it's Psalm 106, and it's known as the lesson from history in Israeli circles. Not sure of the author, but it was someone who had been in exile, because toward the end of the psalm, he writes, "Gather us, Lord, from the nations." So the guess is he's probably been in Babylon or somewhere, and he's wrote this psalm. So, but he's writing about something that happened 1,000 years before with the people. So he's in exile because of Israel's sin. And he goes over Israel's history. Like, if only we'd learn from history kind of deal. That sort of thing. Isn't that the truth? That'd be the wise thing to do, wouldn't it? Learn from history. I don't think we really do now. But he's given a history lesson in Psalm 106 on where Israel went wrong. Now the problem is, to teach that psalm, we'd still be here when Yeshua got back, because it's really, really long. So I've pulled away from that a little bit. And I'm going to use the great Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul's teaching in 1 Corinthians, who draws on said Psalm 106. And so hopefully we'll finish in good order. How does that sound? Yeah? No? Happy? Come on, smile. Surely smile. It's like looking at a painting. Come on, help me out. Help me out. He has 3 points, and I'm hoping that the Lord directed us this way so we can identify with some of it, seek the Lord on it, and then maybe our flesh can decrease a little bit and our spirit increase. Does that sound like a good deal? Because in doing so, you're going to draw closer to God. That's the hope. So let's go to Corinth. Corinth, a port city. I've shared before it was a wild, wild place. Worse than Northbridge. Heaps worse than Northbridge. It was quite a debased place. There was a lot of money, a lot of entertainment, and a lot of sin to go with it. And Paul planted a congregation there, and they were coming out of this lifestyle and coming to faith. And there was a Greek word coined about life in Corinth, because it was famed for a debased lifestyle. It was Korinthimai, which literally meant to lead a debased lifestyle, to lead a polluted life, a defiled life. Now, I know most of you in here. I'm pretty sure nobody's debased or defiled or polluted in any way. But it's fair to say we've got issues that might need some tissues. That's fair, eh? And the Lord wants these things ironed out, because the bride, which you are, need not be wrinkled. So it's for our benefit then, right? It might hurt, I told you. Do some drilling. Might convict you. But that's a good thing. There's plenty of places to go around the corner that I'm telling you, they won't convict you. We've had people walk out of here convicted from over the road. They just walked out because I was teaching on conviction. Didn't they? It's good to be convicted and it's right. Why is it right? Because it brings change. You can't change without it. You just can't. I don't want you to be ignorant, brothers and sisters, that our fathers were all under the cloud and all passed through the sea. They were all immersed into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. And they all ate the same spiritual food. And they all drank the same spiritual drink. For they were drinking from a spiritual rock that followed them. The rock was Messiah. Nevertheless, God was not pleased with most of them. For they were struck down in the desert. Now these things happened as examples for us. So we wouldn't crave evil things just as they did. Don't be idolaters, as some of them were. Because it's written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. And let's not commit sexual immorality, as some of them did. And in one day, 23,000 fell. And let's not test the Lord, as some of them did, and were destroyed by serpents, and not grumble, as some of them did. They were destroyed by the destroying angel. These things happened to them as an example. And it was written down as a warning to us, on whom the end of the ages has come. So, just before he's talking about all things to all people and spreading the gospel, and then he kind of goes off on this tangent. But he's saying brothers and sisters. So he's talking to us about the children of Israel. They immersed themselves into Moshe. Followed the leader who followed the Lord. Moses, he had a beautiful relationship with the Lord. And the people. But there'd be times that they came against him. And they came against the Lord. And Moses had just gone and hit the deck and start interceding for him. Don't do it, Lord. Just please, don't do it. Unreal. The biggest mistake he ever made was hitting a rock twice. That was Moses. He was something else. He had a title, the servant of the Lord. That's the way to be known, isn't it? That was why the Lord himself buried Moses. Because he spoke face to face with him and he knew he was special. And Paul's saying there, God wasn't pleased, but he wasn't pleased with most of them. He's being kind, really. He's being nice, too nice. How many men over 20 left Egypt? Fighting age men. 603,550 men. How many made it through to the promised land? 2. He's saying these things are prefigurative, they're historical events. Paul's telling the brethren at Corinth. But it applies to us just as much today. So what we're supposed to do is make sure through these lessons from Israel's history we resist the temptation to place Israel's history in something called dispensationalism. Fancy schmancy seminary word for a God-appointed order. Because is there really dispensationalism if God doesn't change? I thought he was exactly the same today as he was yesterday. He's always been the same, and he always will be. These are lessons from history that God needs us to know, right? 2,000 years after Paul taught it in Corinth. A lesson from 1,500 years before that. Timeless lessons. Shaul's saying this was a lesson for them living in the Acharit Hayamim, the end days. If it was his end days then, Yeshua's gone back now, he's ascended, so now we're in the last days. It was the last days 2,000 years ago. How close are we now? How much more for us then? God's putting a beautiful lesson on the table for us. He wants to give us a warning. Proverbs, wisdom, right? Better open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend are received as well meant, but an enemy's kisses are insincere. We've had a few of them here and all, now and then. Better an open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend are received as well meant, but an enemy's kiss is insincere. Like, oh, you look lovely in that dress, and then turning round to your mate and going, she looks massive. That's not being a friend, is it? That's an enemy. If someone loves you and tells you something in love, they're caring for your soul. The Jewish people say if you embarrass somebody, you're killing the soul. That's why you're making them red. Someone loves you and tells you something in love, they're caring for you. They might well be going out on a limb because you're going to get offended. How offended do we get? When it really, it should be. Why not be offended? We get so offended though, don't we? You're going to leave or both. And then you're going to bitch about them behind the back. Because that's the Christian thing to do, isn't it? So they end up just giving you something nice and tolerant and relative and PC. Just to make it easy and nobody changes. And it all stays nice and safe and sanitary. And that's not love. Anyway, the point is that this is from Solomon's Book of Wisdom, direct from the throne room. That's fair, right? And if it's so wise to get a rebuke from a friend, shouldn't we pay even more attention if it's a rebuke from Adonai? A warning. It can be a beautiful thing. Zachar in the Hebrew. It means to teach, it means to instruct, it means to... It's not a mean word, it's when God's warning, it's not mean. And do you know what else? It means to send out light. Beautiful. To enlighten, to put light in, to light something up so it dispels the dark. Got to get that darkness out, got to get that leaven out, got to get that flesh burnt. Right? Because it's going to hurt you and everyone around you. So it's loving to get a warning. It's a caution to avoid potential danger. Zachar. There's a word that comes from it to remember. Zichronot. Because the more we tend to remember will mean we need less warning, right? But people being people, we tend to forget what we need to remember and remember what we need to forget, don't we? Well, we've just got to take a step back and we've got to look up and see where we're heading. Check the potential ramifications before we pull the trigger. Check with your spirit. It's not always easy. but it's something we have to try for. So here's the lesson. Here's the 3 issues that need the tissues, according to Paul in Corinthians, right? That feed the flesh. The first one is idolatry. I don't know if we really understand idolatry today. Don't be idolaters as some of them were. As the Tanakh puts it, the people sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in revelry. This was the golden calf deal. When they gathered all the gold and they put it in a pot, and Aaron, classic Aaron, he just said, I just put the gold in, and the calf came out. He's speaking about that time in Horeb, when they fashioned the calf, they worshipped the calf. Idol worship. We have idols today. What's an idol? Your pension, your 4-wheel drive, your Sea-Doo, your kids, your home. It's anything that vies for your heart more or gets in the way of your relationship with God. That's what an idol is. What if he said, well, if it's God and my kids, and you go, yeah, no problem. God every time, right? You say it. Could you really do what Anna did? Could you? How deep's your faith? Because people have to face that. Could you really? We worship money. I think we think about it a whole lot. The lack of, or the need for. We don't get nearly enough giving in here for tithes and offerings. Not nearly enough. There's people who do give, and they give generously, and they're faithful with it. But we don't. We just don't. I don't chase you for it, because it's between you and the Lord. But it's not some Old Testament deal that we don't have to do anymore. Who taught you that? What did Yeshua teach you? You tithe your mint and your dill and your cumin. But you neglect the weightier matters. Justice and mercy and truth, right? Don't neglect those things. But make sure you do the others. Don't neglect them. Yeshua. Matthew 23. He's telling you to tithe. So deal with him. Okay? I told you it was going to work. I don't push it because I work. I work full time. I don't get paid off Beth Yeshua. We're Beth Yeshua here. We're a mission of Beth Yeshua in America, but this is us. It's our church. And we get the call. I've got nobody controlling me. Greg Hirschberg does not control Arnie. And he doesn't want to. Nor does he pay for Arnie. It's our church. And we've got to build it. And we've built it from the ground up. And we're not doing that bad a job as far as a messianic congregation goes. We're trying. We might be punching above our weight, but, so what? I'll keep punching. Idolatry to money. Status is an idol. Your nice house, your nice car, even though you're hocked up to the hilt. But you look good, so that's okay. Well, who really cares? Who really cares? And why bitch? Oh, they've got a brand new car. What are you bothered for? You don't have to pay for it. They're hocked up to the hilt for the next 5 years, paying 60 grand off. People worship the kids, they worship their hobbies. Can you come to a prayer meeting instead of going fishing? That kind of deal. Oh, well, when I go fishing, it helps me concentrate on the Lord. Really? It's anything that cuts into your relationship with the Lord. You're dancing with the Lord and it's sin that's always tapping you on the shoulder to cut in. The game is to keep focused on the Lord then, isn't it? You'll know where you are if you check your money and where it goes, your tithes, your offerings. Does it go on you or does it go in the kingdom? Where do you spend your time? Does it go on you or does it go in the kingdom? How much TV are you watching? How much Facebook are you messing about with? Get your face in his book. How about that? There's one for you. How close do you want to be? How close? You get close, wouldn't you want to stay? I'm telling you, you'd want to stay if you get close, because there's no high like the Most High. None. But we get busy, don't we? I get it, I understand. But we've just got to take stock. And if you want it, if you want to get close, you can. He's very, very open to that, and it's an easy, easy fix. He's more than ready, willing, and able. And he's right there today. The second aspect of it, sexual immorality. Huge issue. In the world, but in the body. Huge. The Greek word here is porneo. Porneo. Guess what we get from that one? In the English. Let us not engage in sexual immorality. Some of them did. The consequence, 23,000 died in a single day. Not good. You see ministries falling over, big ministries. And it's either one of three things. It's either gold, it's either girls, or it's glory. Don't steal the Lord's glory. His glory is what it's all about. But it'll bring you down if you do. God provides. We don't touch his glory. And I'm very happily married. But they had issues in Corinth. Struggles, factions, status issues, backbiting, gossip, complaining, sexual immorality. And they weren't dealing with it. You've got somebody sleeping with his father's wife and you're boasting. Where's your head? That was Paul, wasn't it? Laughing about it. Hey, guess what? That's not the church. That's not the church. It's not the body. Is it? Don't you know that your bodies are parts of the Messiah? So I'm to take the parts of the Messiah and make them parts of a prostitute? Heaven forbid. That's Paul speak for. Are you off your head? Don't you know that a man who joins himself to a prostitute becomes physically one with her? The Tanakh, the Torah, the Nevi'im, the Ketuvim says the two will become one flesh. Yishachad. One flesh. The person who's joined to the Lord is one spirit. Run from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the fornicator sins against his own. Soul ties. And there's always ramifications to relationships. If you whatever you've done is covered under the blood, if you're legit, right? should run from sexual immorality. Remember Joseph, Potiphar's wife? I'm out of here. Cost him though, didn't it? We're in spiritual wedlock with the Messiah. These things are going to attack your mind. And I'm telling you, porn is rife today in the body. And it's a hindrance, and it's men and women. It's rife. And it feeds the flesh, and it keeps the spirit from flowing. And it therefore puts a wedge between you and the Father, doesn't it? Relationally, he's still your Father. You're never going to lose that, but you're going to lose fellowship because he won't go anywhere near it. He can't be anywhere near it. And it might well have a hold on you. It's very, very addictive. But you've got a big God, and he can stop it. So stop it. Do some business with God. The third, let us not put the Messiah to the test, as some of them did. They were destroyed by snakes. Don't grumble, as some of them did, destroyed by the destroying angel. Psalm 106, it says they complained in the tents and they didn't obey the Lord. And you've got this word grumble. Let's get ready to grumble. We see it a lot in the Bible. And it might not be what you think it is. In the Greek, it's gonguzo. Gonguzo. And it means to murmur. Like those people who get together and to talk really, really low. Conferring secretly together in the car park. Discontentedly complaining. So others don't hear. But the damage is already done. It's cancer. It's spiritual cancer. Secret little meetings. And I know it's happened here. I know. I'm telling you it's happened here. You got a complaint and they don't go to the appropriate parties first. No, you want to get a few of you together. You need a like-minded posse, don't you? Strength in numbers. Especially when you want to complain. It's poison. It's just poison. And for some, it's a way of life. And I'm sure they get some kind of government subsidy for it from Centrelink or something. And grumble about anything and everything. And you've got to be careful because it's communicable. Transmissible. It's more transmissible than that word we're not allowed to use, yeah. But you get pulled into it. Have you heard about? Did you hear about? Ooh. And you're like, I know. What about that? You know, it's there, isn't it? It's just a downward spiral. It causes trouble. It's going to attack your faith. Because if you grumble enough, I'm telling you, the Lord's going to catch some of it. And you're going to test him. You don't want to be testing him now, do you? You really don't want to test him. When's he ever treated us according to our sins? When have we ever had to live to his level of perfection? His laws. And we question him. It's just off the chain, eh? The king of Arad, a Canaanite, lived in the Negev, the southern end, heard that Israel was approaching by way of the Atarim. So he attacked Israel and he took some of them captive. Israel made a vow to Adonai, if you hand this people over to me, I'll completely destroy the cities. And Adonai listened to what Israel said, and he handed them over, the Canaanites. And they completely destroyed them and the cities. And they named the place Humah, complete destruction. And then they travelled from Mount Hor on the road toward the Sea of Suf in order to go around the land of Edom. But the people's tempers grew short because of the detour. The people spoke against God and against Moshe. Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to die in the desert? There's no real food, there's no water. We're sick of this miserable stuff we're eating. And in response, Adonai sent poisonous snakes amongst them. Atarim is a mountain pass. This king had heard all about them. And that they've got this God. And that they've hammered anyone who's got in the way. And he's quaking in his boots. So he attacks them, takes some of them captive, and Israel makes this vow. And they get handed over. The Canaanites get handed over and destroyed. So they've been through all this. They've been through all the slavery in Egypt. They've been attacked. God's given them miraculous victory after miraculous victory. And so now they're blessing the Lord and they're praising his name. This is great, another victory. And then they travelled from Mount Hor. And just because they've gone on a detour, they start bitching and whining and moaning and grumbling. After everything they've just been through. Now you might well not be an idolater. You might well not have a problem with sexual immorality. And that's fair dues. And that's what you've probably been thinking, well, that doesn't matter to me. That's not me. But you've got to watch out for this insidious rumble. Because it's going to mess you up with your relationship with the Lord. Look at how it went south so quick, didn't it? You got a detour and the temper's frayed straight away. Spoke against God and Moses. It's just a downward spiral, getting worse. Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to die? There's no real food, there's no water. We're sick of it. And on and on and on. It's just going from bad to worse. Once you're grumbling, it's the heart. It just doesn't stop. It's like a snowball going down a mountain. It's just going to get bigger and worse. So what does he do? Sends the snakes in. There's no, oh, coochie, coo. I'm so sorry. Bang, done. Sometimes the more you have, the more they're complaining. Just keeps reverberating, right? How are we doing? We okay? All in? So let me tell you what I think the root cause of idolatry and sexual immorality and complaining is. It comes down to just not being satisfied with God. That's really it. Some people are just always looking for more. And the only thing you need is more of God. The more stuff you have, the more you've got to deal with. And then it controls you. Johnny lives with me. We've got nothing in our house. I've got nothing in my house that I care for. You know what? Apart from that. That's it. If the house burnt down, That's all I take. It's all I care for. Nothing else matters. People could break in our house and feel sorry for us. I could just drop the lot of it in a new yard. It doesn't matter. We don't care for anything, do we? He knows, he lives with us. Paul, Shaul, he was a man who knew how to be satisfied. He had a favourite little congregation. It was Philippi. And he was in prison when he wrote to them. He said, in union with the Lord, I greatly rejoice that now after this long time, you've let your concern for me express itself again. Of course, you were concerned for me all along. But he had no opportunity to express it. Now that I'm saying this, to call attention to any need of mine, since as far as I'm concerned, I've learned to be content, regardless of circumstance. I know what it is to be in want. I know what it is to have more than enough in everything and in every way. And I've learned the secret of being full and being hungry, of having abundance and being in need. I can do all things through him who gives me power. That gets abused up the wazoo. Calling attention to his need. He's so very, very careful not to put a price tag on the gospel. No one's going to point a finger at Paul or his ministry. Can't do. And he's learned to be content. Content meaning totally satisfied. Not in need of anything. He's in prison. He's in a dark, dank, rat-filled dungeon, probably in chains. But he's content. How does that work? We've got to wake up to ourselves a little bit, don't we? Really? Need to guard that flesh rising up, don't we? He knows what it is to want and to have more than enough. He knows. He is a Pharisee. Acts 23:6. On trial for his life. He's still there. 20, 30 years down the line. I am a Pharisee, brothers. Am. Present tense. Not, I used to be, but I got converted. Am a Pharisee. How does that work? He had everything that went with it. So he knows what it's like to have. And he knows what it's like to have not. But he's content. He knows both sides of the fence. Sometimes God blesses you in riches. Make sure you pay it forward. Because you're in the kingdom. And if you're in the kingdom, you're not a terminal for blessing. You're a channel. Remember who you are. So when is it ever enough? Just enough. If you're blessed, pay it forward. He says, I've learned the secret. He has a secret to share, being full and being hungry. All or nothing. He's told you right there, it's right there. What the secret is. The secret is being in union with the Messiah. Married to Messiah. Shaul, he knew what it was to have a high head and an empty stomach. A happy heart and an empty pocket, he knew. Because he knew the secret. Nothing matters without Yeshua. Nothing. You can gain the whole world, but what will it profit you if you lose your soul? Shaul understood that. He understood what so often slips right through our hands. He was content in union with the Lord. So content in the Lord that he knew if he was hungry, if he was thirsty, if he was being beaten, if he was being imprisoned, whatever it might have been, whatever the situation was, he knew the Lord had put him in there. And he's going to experience something, and that's going to draw him closer to the Lord. Different way of looking at it, right? And that's the secret. And that's how we could say, I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. You're going to say that. Say it in context, eh? Don't just pull it out and draw it like a gun. You've got to be careful about being discontented. The way to avoid it, according to Psalm 106, according to Corinthians, is never forget. Because forgetfulness leads to ungratefulness, which inevitably leads to grumbling and self-will. And self-will doesn't roll in the kingdom. I'm sorry. Anything with self in it has to end, put your teeth in, it has to end in less, selfless. Because like John 3:30 says, we don't need more self, we need less, don't we? We should never forget the suffering of Yeshua. I think we do. Certainly as a body, it's like it's triad Christianity. We don't cry over the cross like we should. And do we really believe the promises of God? We want to. But if we're in a bad place, do we trust God for his word? Do we really? We will if he delivers us, and he delivers us quick. But what if he doesn't? That's such a satanic trap. Satanic. It's to trap you into thinking you've suffered divine betrayal. That God isn't faithful. And then that renders you ineffective in the kingdom. Because there's no way you can then go out and share the gospel. No way. Share the greatness of God. Certainly not with any anointing. Oh, careful, Robbie. You can't share what you don't believe. You can't take somebody where you haven't been. Can you? How are you going to witness to somebody if you don't believe it? Because your witness isn't birthed. It's not birthed out of passion, out of zeal. Spoke on zeal last week. And people know when you're real. And whether it's real to you or not. It's got to be real, and it's got to be spiritual. And we have to be on guard. Don't, especially now, want to get rendered ineffective. Not now. Coming to the sticky end of things. And we don't want to be complacent. Adonai loved Israel. And he loved him so much he gave him a pet name. You know what the pet name is? Yeshurun. Yeshurun. It's a beautiful word. It means my upright one. But Yeshurun grew fat and kicked, thick and gross, abandoned God his maker, and he scorned the rock of his salvation. They became fat because they became lukewarm. In the spiritual, they had a high percentage of fat and they were enjoying it too much. And so they became complacent. And with complacency, they became arrogant and contented. And they took Adonai's grace for granted. Did we cry out for the Lord? For our community, for our city, for our country? We need to. For the lost, because there's plenty of them. Why do you think we're in the mess we're in? Because we're focusing on our spiritual needs and we've lost our social conscience. It'd be good to see a lot of people down there at the abortion rally. 8,000 babies a year get killed here. And that this government, or whichever government you want to put in, it won't give a toss. Don't care. They don't care. They're trying in America to stop it. Why can't we? It needs to be stopped. Where'd you get off celebrating killing babies? Where's that? If you've got any shred of humanity in you. And be careful who you vote for. Because these people who they put in front of you to vote for, most of them are rabid abortionists. They love it. Pro-abortion. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. 1.5 billion babies since Roe v. Wade, 50 years. 1.5 billion. Selling body parts. You wonder why the world's corrupt. You wonder why the world's in a mess. It's bloodlust for babies. That's why we're so miserable. We've got to mature in our faith. We have to be disciples we're called to be. We're no different to Peter, James and John. No different. They were just ordinary men, ordinary folk, Ha'aretz, ordinary. Just normal Joes. Nobody special. They weren't special, they were just normal. But they served an extraordinary God, filled with an extraordinary Spirit of God. And we've got the same access. The same Spirit. And we can be filled with that same Spirit, and we're here for His will, not ours. You've got to get a grip on who you are. Our will isn't ours. Our will was crucified with Him. So now you don't have a will. You're supposed to be bondservants. That wasn't just for the apostles. It's for every one of us. Bondservants. No inalienable rights. Just do what He says. Just do what He says. Different way, innit? It's not what you hear. It's not what you hear on a Sunday, is it? You've got to be here for Him and His purposes and glorify His name. That's what your life's got to be about. You want a purpose-driven life. That's it. Glorify His name. Be who you're called to be and be in the kingdom. We can't stop. Can't. Not we won't. Not we'll think about it. Can't. Because they're possessed with the Holy Spirit. And He's driving them. We can't stop. We've got to do it. You want to stop us killers. If you kill us, you free us. That's what it's about. That's Christianity 101. Welcome to the club. The only way you get mature is in the cauldron. Not here. Not in the classroom. In the cauldron. And in the cauldron, you've got to go through some fire. And the body isn't taught that. And the fire is going to come, and people are going to freak out. They're going to freak out because they think, oh, crap, I'm in the fire. What have I done? I've done something wrong. You've not done anything wrong. He's doing something right. He's putting you through it. Because in it, you're going to grow and you're going to get closer to him. Count yourself worthy and say amen. And guess what you're going to get out? You're going to be a real deal believer. That's what you're going to be. He's got to get the wrinkles out. He needs a bride to come back to. What if the power of God actually comes through you? And you lay your hands on somebody, legit. Speak in a tongue all you want. I don't care. I don't care if it's legit. Maybe it's going to be legit and you're going to heal them. What about that? How are you going to feel then? I don't want to say all that be healed crap and dropping, courtesy dropping, shabba labba ding dong. I want it real. Show me real. And if you're legit, it is real. It's not changed one bit. Not one. It's the same deal. It's the same God. And we're the same believers. There's nothing changed. Legitimately anointed. How good would that be? It's worth giving some flesh up for, isn't it? Yeshua told his disciples up front, if anybody wants to come after me, if you want to be my believer, you've got to say no to yourself. It's not self-denial. Denying self, different. You yield to his control so completely you have no rights. It's a bit like living in Australia, really. We should be getting used to it. We should be finding it easier. It's not a popular teaching, like I said. Doesn't put bums on seats, but it's biblical. It is the word. It's what we should be about. We need to get rid of the flesh. You want to see God burning your flesh. Seeing his spirit rise up. Well done, good and faithful servant. It's all about getting burnt, innit? That's a joke. Okay. Hey, tough crowd. You got to see him rise up in you. You have a deep desire to spread the word, doing the things of God for his glory. It's what he wants for us. It's why we're here. Our souls, whether we know it or not, are screaming to be godly. Screaming to be holy. It's inbuilt in us to want to be like Yeshua. It's inbuilt. It's why you're here. Because you're looking for more, right? You're looking for him. And he's answering the cry of your soul in his infinite, beautiful mercy. And it's going to cost you everything. It's going to cost, I'm not going to lie to you, it's going to cost you everything. The entrance to the kingdom, totally free. The annual dues, though, they cost you everything. So welcome to the kingdom. And I'm here to push you, and I'm here to convict you, and I'm here to lead you to be a Matthew 16:24 congregation. So maybe we can get out of ourselves. And I know it's hard, because society these days, it's just a microwave ping, and everybody wants everything now. It's all about me. It's a me generation. But we're called to be different. We're called to be first century believers. And if we blaze their trail, maybe we'll get their results. If we glorify our beautiful God, wouldn't it be great to be known that we put ourselves out? We're out there praising, we're out there witnessing, we're out there being thankful, we're out there being one. Known for loving each other. Feeding people, seeking the kingdom first. How about that? So that's where I'm going to try and lead us, and let's see what the Lord does, because we must decrease and he must increase. Amen. Shabbat shalom. Let's stand and have a blessing.